Good morning, students. We are meeting here for the concluding part of the first chapter in your chemistry book, which is matter in our surroundings. Previously, we had discussed how heat and pressure help in change of state in some substance. We discussed pressure a little in the previous day, because pressure will come in the upper classes, the effects of pressure. But the effects of heat, how does it help change the state of a substance from solid to liquid, liquid to gas? This we must discuss now with special reference to an important idea, latent heat. But before that, let us go and identify the three common units of temperature.
The common unit of measuring temperatures, like melting points, boiling points of different substances, is degrees Celsius, written as degree C, capital C. The melting point of ice on Celsius scale is 0 degrees Celsius, which on Fahrenheit scale will be 32 degree Fahrenheit. And the boiling point of water on Celsius scale is 100 degrees Celsius, whereas on Fahrenheit scale it will be 212 degree Fahrenheit. The official SI unit of measuring temperature is Kelvin, written as capital K. Never use the word degree or its sign with Kelvin scale temperatures. The melting point of ice on Kelvin scale is 273 K, which is 0 degree Celsius and 32 degree Fahrenheit on respective other scales. The boiling point of water on Celsius scale is 373 K, which is 100 degrees Celsius and 212 degree Fahrenheit on respective other scales. So you understand the short formula that temperature on Kelvin scale is equal to temperature on Celsius scale plus 273.
Now let us again look at how this heat energy goes into a substance. We are explaining the different states of substances according to the kinetic theory. Let me remind you once more. Kinetic theory tells you that all the particles, all substances are made up of tiny innumerable particles. These particles have a force of cohesion between them. They are attracted to each other. In solid form, this force of attraction is the most. And in liquid and in gaseous state, this force of attraction becomes less. Kinetic theory also tells you that the particles are always in motion. More energy you put into it, heat energy, thermal energy, it will give them kinetic energy to move around faster. So in solid, they have little space to move apart from each other. Liquid, they have a little more space. And in gas, they have most kinetic energy. They move apart from each other all the time. And so, in solid, they have very little space between the particles. Liquids have some more space. It has a definite volume but no shape. And gas neither has fixed volume nor shape, because there is a world of space between all the gas molecules. So, let us look at how in solid the particles look. It looks like it is tightly packed. All the particles in a solid, say a block of ice. We are taking the example of ice because we will explain heat also in terms of ice, water and water vapor. Melting point and boiling point of H2O. These are taken as the basis of all the heat scales. You see, in Fahrenheit, 32 degree Fahrenheit is the melting point of ice, and 212 degree Fahrenheit, the highest degree in that scale. It is the boiling point of water. Same way, 0 degrees Celsius is the melting point of ice, and 100 degrees Celsius is the boiling point of water. And Kelvin you have seen. This H2 is taken because ice, water and water vapor. The H2O perhaps the only compound that exists in 3 different states in very naturally in nature. Thus we take it as a, it's by itself is a standard. Now look at, say it's ice. Suppose we are giving it heat energy. How does heat energy will go? Heat energy will come to these particles that which are touching the surface through which the heat is going. Now since this heat energy is converted into kinetic energy, but these particles cannot move apart because they are tightly packed, held down by the other particles of the same substance. They will just transfer the heat to the other particles. So, you understand, in solid substances, heat is conducted first from particle to particle to particle. This method of heat transfer is called conduction of heat. What will happen? After all these particles have enough kinetic energy in them that they can now move apart from each other. They can overcome the force of cohesion, which is most in the solid. Now they can overcome the force of cohesion, not singularly, but as a collective unit. All the molecules will move apart. Now this will melt and look like this. Now this is a process, mind you, that once it starts to melt and the whole lot of ice, say it is 1 kg of ice there, and the whole lot is melted into water, you have to give heat and heat. It must be continuously heating from the start of melting to the finish of melting. Keep it in mind. Now we go on giving this more heat. Now conduction method will not work, because now the particles that are touching the surface that through which heat is being transferred, this particle will be converting the heat energy to kinetic energy, but it has space to move around. It does not need to nurse that energy ahead to the other particles. It will be dynamic itself and it will move around, usually upside. This one will leave its place at the bottom and move upward, trying to fly away. What will happen? That those particles which had less kinetic energy, they will automatically come down to replace the ones that had moved away. And when they come down, they touch the surface of the heat, hot surface. Now they will themselves be heated. And again they move away, and the colder particles particles with less kinetic energy will replace them. You have seen that when you put water to more heat, it makes a movement up and down. The kinetic particles are moving up and up, less kinetic particles are coming down. And they are trying to break apart to fly away from each other. And now say, the moment it starts to boil, that means the particles are moving apart and the other particles coming down. At the stage when we must put a lid on the container because it has turned into water vapor gas. They have no almost negligible attraction, force of attraction between them. Unless we put a lid, they will flow away. Now this point, when the first heated particle moved away and the first particle without kinetic energy came to replace it, the moment the water become a little trouble stirring up and down, start boiling. And that point, when water is no more water, it is gas, we cannot see it. We just feel the pressure of the lid from the inside of the container. We must go on adding this 1 kg water, go on adding heat. And this method of adding heat, we call it convection. Convection of heat also takes place in gaseous substances. The gases are, if you go on heating, it is another story. We'll go into the upper classes. But convection applies to those states of matter where there is some more space between the particles, so that when they are given extra energy, and that energy is converted into kinetic energy, they have enough space to move around. That kind of conduction of heat by replacing the charged heated particles with the non-heated particles is called the convection of heat. It takes place into the liquid and gaseous substances. Then there is another method of heat transfer, that is radiation. We don't need it in this period because it is without media. We'll talk about it later on. So you have understood this. Now let us go to the conception of latent heat. First look at the slide to understand the definition.
Heat energy is transferred from its source to another substance in mainly two ways. In solids, heat is conducted by the method of conduction, and in liquids and gases is by the process of convection. Radiation is also a method of energy transfer that you will learn later on.
So you have got the definition. Latent, the word latent means hidden. Something that is not seen, not felt, not openly displayed, secret. Latent heat is the heat energy that is supplied. That heat energy is supplied to change the state of a substance, completely change the state of a substance, is called latent heat. You see, there was 1 kg of ice, we began to heat it. Now when this reaches the 0 degrees Celsius, we have taken 0 degrees Celsius for common example, we call it the melting point of the ice. Ice begins to melt. That means all these particles have now enough energy in them that they are ready to break apart from each other. But mind you, there is a lot of force of attraction between them. They cannot do it in a split second, all the particles cannot get loose just in a minute, in a moment. So from the 0 degree Celsius melting point to the totally melting of this ice, 1 kg ice converted into water, it takes lot of extra heat than it was taken to reach the 0 degree Celsius. The funny thing is that once it is reached 0 degree Celsius and we give it more heat, we are adding heat, but until the whole 1 kg ice is converted into water, until it is totally converted, total change of state, this 0 degree Celsius temperature will not change. We know extra heat has gone in it. 0 degree Celsius, to reach 0 degree Celsius it needed heat, and we went on heating it until it is totally liquefied into water. But that extra heat will not show on your thermometer. The temperature will remain 0 degree Celsius. Where has this extra heat gone? It is hidden. And that's why this hidden heat is called the latent heat. Look at it again. Now we have reached from 0 degree ice started melting, and now I have water which is also 0 degree Celsius. Can you tell me which is hotter? As a temperature both will show 0 degree. We are not adding heat now, just plain water. Of course water will feel lot more warm than ice. You take ice in your hand, it will feel cold. But normal water at room temperature, it is also 0 degree. Feel it, you will not feel anything. A little cool on us. Because latent heat inside it, that makes it hotter. But on scale, it is still 0 degree. Now you go on adding heat, and this particle move about in the convection of heat until when does it start to move about? When we have added 100 degree more Celsius heat to it, from 0 to 100 degrees Celsius. Then the first particles of the liquids begin to move up and down, up and down. So the beginning of the boiling point, beginning of boiling, 100 degrees Celsius. Now when all these particles of the liquid, they have done moving away, they are now so energized that they are ready to break apart the last force of attraction and fly away, they become gas. The moment they started to boil 100 degrees Celsius, and when this we have to put a lid, because now the liquid is no more liquid, what is now vapor. We had to add a lot more heat than we had to do to come to the boiling point. Yet, once it starts to boil, until the whole water is turned into vapor, that 100 degrees Celsius temperature will not change. So how much heat had gone in with that 100 degree Celsius? Where is that heat? That heat is hidden, latent heat. And that's why if we ask that what is water? A boiling water or steam, hot water. At 100 degrees Celsius water, yes, it's hot. It feels hot. But at 100 degrees Celsius steam, it will scald your skin. It will burn your skin immediately because a lot more heat, latent heat had gone into that liquid to make it gas. So you now understand there are two kinds of latent heat. The latent heat that changes a solid, the quantity of extra heat in joules, because temperature is not changing, so we must measure the heat in terms of energy and it must be measured in joules. The quantity of heat in joules that is required to convert 1 kg of any solid substance at its melting point. After it has reached melting point, after that you go on supplying heat until it is totally changed into 1 kg of liquid. That extra heat, that is quantity of heat needed to turn 1 kg of a solid into 1 kg of a liquid, that extra heat without changing the temperature. That's why we measure it in energy, in terms of energy. That quantity of heat expressed in joules is called the latent heat of fusion. Or you can also say melting. The same definition goes for the liquid to gas. Say 1 kg liquid at its boiling point, and when that 1 kg liquid is completely converted into gas, the quantity of heat, extra heat from its boiling point, the extra heat energy needed to convert the full 1 kg liquid into 1 kg gas, that extra quantity of heat without changing the temperature to be expressed in joules, that quantity of heat we call it latent heat of vaporization. Look at the slides, but I will give you two basic units. Different elements, different substances have different melting point, boiling point. So they have different quantity of latent heat in them. But the common example, you know, that we talk of water. It's take 3.34 into 10 to the power 5 joules per kg of ice as latent heat, and also 22.5 into 10 to the power 5 joules per kg extra heat, latent heat, to vaporize a liquid into vapor. Let's look at the slide to give this definition, keep this definition in mind. Look at it.
The amount of heat energy which must be supplied to change the state of a substance completely is called its latent heat. The latent heat is used up in overcoming the forces of attraction, forces of cohesion between the particles of a substance during the change of state. And that is why latent heat does not cause any rise in temperature of the substance till the change of state is entirely complete. Latent heat is of two types. Latent heat of fusion or melting. It is required to change a solid into a liquid. Second type is latent heat of vaporization. It is required to change a liquid into gas. The latent heat of fusion or melting of a solid is the quantity of heat in joules. The temperature is not changing, so we must measure the heat here in the energy spent, that is in joules. The latent heat of fusion of a solid is the quantity of heat in joules required to convert 1 kilogram of solid at its melting point, when the melting starts, to liquid without any change in temperature. The latent heat of fusion for ice H2O is 3.34 into 10 to the power 5 joules per kilogram of ice. Let's look at the experiment. You see, here we are melting ice in a beaker and with a thermometer suspended inside it. When the temperature is 0 degrees Celsius, the ice starts melting, and till the full 1 kg ice is melted, the thermometer will show that the temperature does not change, but all the time the heat was going on because the burner was burning. That extra heat without changing the 0 degrees Celsius temperature that was needed to convert the full 1 kg ice into 1 kg liquid. That extra heat is called the latent heat. Okay. Now, in the same way, the latent heat of vaporization of a liquid is that quantity of heat in joules required to convert 1 kilogram of the liquid at its boiling point, when it starts to boil, to vapor or gas without any change in temperature. The latent heat of vaporization of water H2O is 22.5 into 10 to the power 5. 22.5 into 10 to the power 5 joules per kilogram. Same way you are seeing that we are keeping the same 1 kg water and goes on heating with the same burner and the thermometer is there. The moment the reading on the thermometer reads 100 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Celsius, the water starts boiling. Now till the fully the water vaporizes and there is nothing left inside the beaker, if it is an open beaker without a lid, the temperature will remain at 100 degrees Celsius. But obviously, since the boiler went on burning, the burner went on burning, boiling the water, so extra heat must have gone in it before it totally turned to vapor. That extra heat is called the latent heat of vaporization.
Our fundamental discussion has ended. We will now talk about evaporation a little more. Evaporation, because evaporation has certain change from the process of vaporization. There are certain differences. Evaporation is when vaporization takes place. Vaporization takes place below the boiling point of a liquid, particularly water. It does not reach the boiling point. Before that, it starts to vaporize. You know, it's not possible unless there is a lot of extra latent heat goes into it. Because though it has not reached the boiling point, but it must have that kind of extra heat inside it, latent heat inside it, to make the change of state. What happens is that evaporation has a lot of applications in our practical life. That's why we are discussing it specially. First, look at the definition and which factors affect this evaporation. Please look at the slide.
The process of a liquid changing into vapor or gas even below its boiling point. Such a process is called evaporation, which is slightly different from vaporization. But you understand, whatever the temperature at which evaporation takes place, the latent heat of vaporization, that extra heat, a little more in fact, must be supplied. Otherwise, it could not have changed its state. So, you must remember this. And now let's look at the major four factors that affect the evaporation, the rate of it. Temperature, surface area upon which the heat is given, humidity in the air, that is the dampness, moisture in the air, and the speed of the wind blowing at that time. Let us discuss them one by one.
So temperature, the more the temperature, it is obviously the evaporation rate will be higher. In the same way, if the surface area is more, evaporation will be more. We have seen that how we spread the wet sari, kapra, clothes on a clothes line. We spread it so that it has more surface area. And of course the humidity in air. If the air is already damp, it has already water vapor inside the air. So it is difficult to vaporize. So humidity in air affects the rate of evaporation negatively. And wind speed, if the wind is going high, it will make the evaporation faster because it is making more space for the water molecules to go inside the air molecules because it is constantly moving themselves, the air molecules are moving themselves. This we have prepared a series of slides, we'll go into that. But let me also mention a few points that you see, nature has a complicated process. Why, when the evaporation takes place, why does it feel very cool? Because when evaporation takes place, actually the liquid that gets evaporated, it takes away that latent heat as a latent heat because you see, although it has not reached the boiling point, but to be vaporized, it must have the extra heat, and that extra heat, it takes away as latent heat. In the summertime, it's very hot. Our body has its own mechanism of sweating. Why do we sweat? One point is that it to excrete the extra salt inside the body. That's all right. But there is one more function. The moment you try and start to sweat, that sweat comes out and takes the extra heat from your body. Your body was hot. You are feeling very uncomfortable. You begin to sweat. That sweat comes out and on the surface of your body takes the body temperature, that extra heat from the body surface as latent heat and get vaporized. We call it evaporation because it has not reached this boiling point, but that extra heat from our skin, it supplied that latent heat to get it vaporized. So when it goes away vaporized, we sit down under a, if in a cool place and that goes away as vapor, we feel cool. When the sweat drops and sweat dries up, we feel cool. Wind speed, if you switch on your fan, air starts circulating, making more space of that water molecule. You will feel cooler. This is a common example of evaporation. Also, you have seen that on a hot, dry day, a desert cooler is more effective to keep the water or any liquid cool. Same way in Surahi pitcher, we keep it because it is made up of clay and has lots of perforated through which the water comes out and gets evaporated and keep the water inside. Let's look at a series of slides that's best and understand the common effects of evaporation. Please look.
I repeat the four factors affecting evaporation. Primarily temperature. And you know that if the temperature is higher, if you go on putting in heat, temperature increases, the rate of evaporation also increases. Secondly, surface area to which the heat is given. Number 3, humidity or the moisture in the air. And number 4, how much speedily the wind is blowing. Let us discuss them one by one. The rate of evaporation increases on increasing the temperature of the liquid. In fact, if you go on heating it, vaporizes. That is the ultimate form of evaporation. So rate of evaporation is in the direct proportion to the temperature of the liquid. The rate of evaporation also increases on increasing the surface area of the liquid. You have seen how we spread the wet clothes from a line so that it dries up faster. And you have also seen that how if we take hot milk or tea from the plate instead of the cup, it's easier to take. So the rate of evaporation increases on increasing the surface area of the liquid. It is also in direct proportion. But the opposite, the rate of evaporation decreases if there is much humidity in the air. If the air has already lot of water vapors in it, so the rate of evaporation will decrease. So the rate of evaporation is in inverse proportion to the humidity in air. And the last one is easy to understand. In a windy day, when the wind moves the air around, the rate of evaporation will increase because the wind will make lots of space in the air for the water vapors to go into. Now let us look at some pictures. Evaporation brings a cooling effect because as a liquid evaporates, it takes away the latent heat of vaporization from anything it touches. Some of the common observations of evaporation, how it helps and how to make it help us. Perspiration or sweating, cotton clothes, you see in the winter time we wear woolen clothes, but in the summer time cotton clothes are more comfortable. Room coolers, fans, they are more effective on a hot and dry day. Also sipping hot tea, milk is easier from a saucer than a cup. Let's look at some more pictures. And this is the something you must see, this salt, the most commonest thing in our life, but the most essential. Can you imagine any meal without salt? No. Salt is usually made in this process using evaporation. So you see, evaporation is very necessary in our life. I am here discussing 2 more extra points, that is actually apart from the 3 states of substances we have discussed. Matter has also another 2 states, and plasma and Bose-Einstein condensate. Plasma is very common. It is not so uncommon as you think. Plasma is a state in which a mixture of free electrons and ions, you will learn about it in the upper classes, but as well you learn these few points. It occurs naturally in the stars, this state, including sun. In fact, the sun and the other stars glow because of presence of plasma in them, a fluorescent light, tube light in fact, or a neon sign. You have seen the neon signs on advertisements, glows because of plasma. Plasma can be made artificially, and we use it by passing electricity through gases at very low pressure. And this is the 5th state. This state we have attained only a some time ago, only just some time ago, and the scientist who did it also got the Nobel Prize that year. But we know very little about this state. Bose-Einstein condensate. About Albert Einstein, you know already a lot. But this Bose was an Indian physicist and mathematician, a great scientist, Satyendranath Bose. He, together with Einstein, proposed that there is a fifth state. This state has recently been attained by cooling a gas of extremely low density. How low? 1 by 1 lakh times the density of normal air. 1 by 10 to the power 4 times lower than the density of normal air. And also the second condition is there, super low temperature. Little is known about this fifth state of matter and its possible application in daily life, which is very important. So researches are going on. You can learn a little more about it if you go to this website I am giving here, about this fifth state of matter a lot. That is chem4kids.com. Please, I am suggesting that you look it up.
So students, we are at the end of this first lesson on your chemistry book. We'll come back with the second lesson very soon. Till then, I am telling you that you go through each topic very seriously. And I am encouraging you to look up on your own other YouTube videos, different materials available on the internet. You have got enough time. And without fail do the questions and answers I am supplying to you as exercise separately. Get prepared. We will conduct an examination also very soon. And after that we will start with the next chapter, that whether the substances in our surroundings, they are pure or impure. That is the second chapter. Till then, stay home, stay safe, stay strong and stay studious. Study very seriously. Right? So, thank you.